Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Dayton Planning Board regular meeting, public hearing for Tuesday, September 21st, 2022. Be reminded that this is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast. If you can please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, so I'd like to confirm the next meeting for October 5th, 2022. First order of business is agenda item 4A, 4A1, which is to review, discuss, and act on the Wellington Acres Homeowners Association in regards to status of development assessments, turnover, and proposed draft homeowners association agreement amendment. I'm a little, hit your packet here. I need to read the continuation request from the applicant. My laptop's at home. But I do have my mouse, so that's important. So email received from John Zajac. He's the general counselor with the Lopes Companies, 490 Winthrop Street. Email sent on September 20th, 2022, 12:37 p.m. Hi, Carrie. We are requesting a continuance to the 10/19 meeting. Please let us know if this email suffices or if you need a more formal request. Thanks, John. It's on John Zajac. So, first item is continued till 10/19. Second item, the Sunrun installation services. Oh, need a motion?
Yes.
Okay, can someone please make a motion to continue the Wellington Acres Homeowners Association to October 19th?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion before you take it to a vote? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4 ayes. Next item on the agenda is a list of public hearings. Item 4B. First item on the list is the Sunrun installation services at 2154 Horton Street, special permit site plan review. Once again, Mr. Premier.
There's nothing to show, we just need to
Nothing to
continue.
show, it's a blank page. All right, so the applicant is still working with the stormwater.
Conservation.
It's conservation.
And we need our peer review engineer comments.
All right, so we have two items, a peer review feedback, and also Conservation Commission, they're still working with them, so as a result, we're not gonna hear back from the peer review until sometime next week, right? So as a result, that's also going to be continued, so can someone please make a motion to continue Sunrun installation services?
I'll make a motion.
Public hearing.
to Continue Sunrise installation.
Do we have a date?
October 5th?
October 5th, to October 5th.
To October 5th.
Okay, motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 ayes, that motion carries. Sunrun is on the 5th. Next public hearing is number 442 is Hunters Hill Subdivision, Long Built Homes Incorporated, Special Permit Conservation Subdivision Modification. Gentlemen?
Gee, look familiar.
Do we have to vote to do anything, or is public hearing was already open, right?
Just, you can open the public hearing
Okay,
for this evening.
all right. We have to vote on that, or is it open?
You can vote on it.
Okay, somebody please make a motion to open the public hearing for Hunters Hill.
I'll make that motion.
And I second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Sir?
Mr. Chairman, it's Evan Watson, W Engineering, representing the applicant. We came here last time with Hunters Hill Conservation Subdivision. We took some input from the board and abutters, and we were waiting for review from Mr. Shaheen, the board's review engineer. I am very happy to say that he has returned a letter. We've gone back and forth and basically addressed all of his comments. The last correspondence that we received was he asked that we expand the ADA curb ramp, detectable strip through the entire width of the ramp, and this set of plans reflects that.
Okay,
I can also very happy to announce that I was at my desk, received a letter from Niche Engineering, which is the Conservation Commission's review engineer. There's a few issues on here, but what I can definitively say is that none of the issues in that letter will require any changes to the plan or the drainage. There's a few items about asking them to keep an eye on when the houses are built, maybe take a look at the trees that need to be cut down, and maybe some erosion control downgrading of any work to be done.
okay. Did this come to you, Carrie, or is this news to you?
No, I will need one.
Okay, all right.
I can forward you the digital copy too. It just came in
Perfect.
right before I left, so.
Thank you.
Okay, just give me a minute. So this came to Lisa Caledonia.
Right, and the reason I'm presenting that to you is just to basically let you know that anything from their review engineer, which was the last piece they're waiting for, isn't gonna require any changes, so.
Got it, okay. Yeah, I did, we spoke before, and there was, as I understand it, the comments that came back from the town's peer reviewer have been incorporated all into your drawings, and
correct.
then that's all, and we got a copy of those. Is that the copy that's in our packet? Or is,
Yes.
okay, the
So
copy in our
what
packet
the
has the changes?
copies have not been incorporated into the current packet. They're
Right.
the ones that I gave to you this evening, because I
Right.
got them late, and then that roll right there.
This roll here is a copy of what he has there.
Along with the ones that he's
Okay.
presenting tonight.
The only thing that's not shown on the plan, Mr. Figueredo can tell you, we met with the Stormwater Commission, and they took great exception that we were proposing a post and rail fence around some of the detention basins. So we will offer to put a 4-foot chain link fence as per the regulations. So.
Okay, that's not reflected in these drawings.
It is not, but
Okay.
if it were the board's purview to approve these plans, I would ask that that be a condition of approval, that we could modify that.
Question here is 4 foot the required, or is it 5 foot?
I thought it was 4 foot, but it could be as, you know, a chain link fence as required by the building inspector, I suppose.
And 4 foot is adequate, right, you think?
4 foot. Yeah. 4 foot's adequate, in my belief anyways. We discussed it a little bit with some of the residents afterwards, you know, they're thinking 6 foot, but inevitably somebody put a giant fence there, somebody will wanna climb over and they can't climb back, so it's,
If it's to protect kids, kids are just like deer, they will climb whatever they want. There, so it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, absolutely.
so in my mind, it's a visual barrier that is telling people, keep out, and if somebody goes over there, they can say, keep out of there, and they know where to keep out from, cause, you're right, we're not gonna keep people from going over if they want to.
So, members of the board, as you're looking through here, are there any additional concerns on this? I know we just got this, so just take your time going through it. Just give us a minute.
Yep, no problem.
This is all for conservation.
Yes, it is, yeah.
It's addressed to them.
Yeah, it's not anything from the stormwater. So the only condition from the stormwater was the chain link fence around the retention ponds? Or is it the retention ponds?
Actually, I actually said it at the meeting, I don't know that it is there,
Right, it's within their purview to require that. We said, you know, we'll take their input and bring it to this board, and talk about it with you guys.
So,
Okay. No other concerns?
I don't have any.
Okay. Gentlemen? Okay. All right. Are there any other members of the public? I know you're here specifically for the solar bylaw, right? So, knowing what we know, knowing the condition that we want to put forth, and also, we allowed to talk about the email from the lawyer? Is that something that we,
Yeah,
okay, so is is it in the packet?
No,
It's
it's
not in the
not.
packet. So we received an email from the lawyer, is the Johnson's lawyer?
the Johnson's lawyer.
Johnson family lawyer, and it appears the best course of action is to go ahead and approve this. And then, at that point, there's a number of different options. One of them is the purchase of the lot, or getting some kind of a waiver or something along those lines that Johnsons can go ahead and sell it themselves. So we were initially gonna hold off on voting on this tonight, but having read that email, it seems like that's the best course of action. And I'm comfortable with what you're presenting, and I'm comfortable with having that condition in there. And unless there's any other objections from any of the board members, I don't see any reason to hold this up any further. Looking forward to this project starting, but, that being said, we want to vote on this, or we want to talk about the fee matter first?
So I think there's a couple things. First, you have to do the fee matter first.
Right,
And then, make sure that you do the, you vote on the approvals of the requested waivers from their letter of October 17th, which is at the very last 2 pages of the whole packet. And then you can vote.
On-
The official vote of
question waiver on what date?
their letter of August 17th.
August 17th, that's right.
Sorry, did I
Yep.
say?
You said October.
You said October.
You said October, I'm like,
Sorry,
I have to check, I'm like,
jumping the gun, sorry.
I thought there was a waiver from 2021 that I messed
Yeah.
up.
No, we could go back 19 years ago. Yes.
We actually could, okay, and then,
So there's, and that, the waivers are it's the last 2 pages of the entire packet.
okay,
And then you can make your vote for the subdivision last.
it's a special permit, right?
The special permit conservation subdivision.
All right, so on the matter of the fee, we received your letter, and probably should read that letter into record.
August 17th, yep.
No, that's the waiver request.
I have extra copies of it.
Yeah, I have extra copies at home on my laptop. Yeah, if you don't mind, sorry about that, I apologize. All right, so this is a matter of the fee. All right, so I'm gonna read this letter into
Thank you.
record.
I have a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna read this letter into record.
Okay.
This letter is dated September 13th, 2022, from Longpelt Homes, addressed to Carrie Easter Day. Dear Carrie, the purpose of this letter is to serve as a formal request to have the planning board consider reducing the administrative fees for our application for modification of the definitive subdivision plan pursuant to section 3.5 fee waivers. As previously discussed, using the fee structure set forth in the subdivision rules and regulations, I have calculated that for our application, the administrative fees would be $31,000, which seems to be extraordinarily erroneous and inconsistent with what I believe is intended. I do not believe that the fee structure contemplated a situation like this where subdivision was dormant for so many years that such significant changes to wetland resource areas occurred, resulting in 110 lots having to be reconfigured and/or newly created. I believe that the reduction being requested is well warranted in this instance in light of the significant economic benefits that this project will generate for the town, some of which are, 1, the community will provide the town over $1 million in net positive real estate tax revenue because no school-aged children will reside in the community, so there's no deer. All of the community infrastructure, roads, drainage, facilities, et cetera, will be private. We're having too much fun here today. Number two, the community will provide to the town and other local governments an additional $1 million in other taxes and other revenue sources. And three, the residents of the community will spend almost $4 million annually purchasing goods and services from local merchants. I look forward to appearing before the planning board at this meeting on September 21st, 2022 for discussion and consideration of this request for reduction of administrative fees for our application for modification of the definitive subdivision plan pursuant to section 3.5 fee waivers. In the meantime, if any questions arise that need to be addressed prior to the meeting, or if any additional information or materials needs to be provided prior to the meeting, please let me know, and you provide your contact information. Very truly yours, Lee Castagnetti Jr. Okay, so we had I don't know if you had anything further to add to that, but
I just did want to point out that I neglected to indicate that, that $1 million in net is upon full build-out
Right.
Annually.
right, that's
So
kind of,
that's not, the one-time thing, that's an annual net positive tax revenue, as well as to this government and local governments, and other taxes, sales taxes, personal property taxes alike,
Yep.
of another $1 million annually.
I
Yep.
was gonna try to say that you could actually add that $1 million to the whole thing.
yeah, so in which case 31,000 is actually kind of low.
Exactly.
No, just kidding. So we checked your math, and we also agree $31,000 is what it would turn into. And I had a conversation earlier today, and we confirmed it, and we're willing to meet you halfway and cut that number in half to $15,000.
Okay.
If that's agreeable to you, that's what we'll move forward with.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You okay with that?
I'm
Any-
fine with
any
it.
concerns?
You
So
already
we-
said it. Who am I?
Well, I mean, it's not voted on, it's not,
No,
okay.
that's,
That's the proposal, is reducing it from $31,000 down to $15,000.
I think that's fair.
And that's, so that we, the thought was meeting them halfway, we just keeping in that theme. That would be more than reasonable. Asking more than that would be, I think, excessive. So if someone on the board can make a motion that the fees for the Hunter's Hill, looking for the words,
Administrative fees.
administrative fees for Hunter's Hill for the, hang on, I'll find it.
Special permit conservation subdivision modification.
Special permit subdivision conservation modification would be, to the amount of $15,000, in the amount of $15,000.
So move.
Motion's made and a second. Any discussion before we take it to a vote? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's 4 ayes. Okay. Fee matter, 15K. All right, so to the approval of requested waiver for the letter received on August 17th. Someone would like to make a motion to approve the waiver as written in the August 17th letter?
Could I, an overview, I mean, just,
Sure.
Sure.
what is it that you're,
Well, just asking for confirmation that the original 12 waivers that are on the original plan apply to the new plan.
Okay.
And then the other waivers were just relating to some, primarily the changes
changes that were made?
in the regulations and citing the correct regulation instead of what was cited and things of that
Okay.
nature there.
All right, just getting old.
They actually pertain primarily to
The original.
the existing build, not new. The new is generally fully in compliance with current regulations.
Good. Anything else, gentlemen? All right, can somebody make a motion to accept the requested waiver for the Hunter's Hill special permit? Motion made?
I don't have to work too hard.
Motion made and second. Yeah, thank you. Any discussion before we take it to a vote? Anything further, any questions or concerns? All right, all in favor? Aye. That's 4 ayes. And last but not least, somebody make a motion to approve the subdivision, special permit for the conservation subdivision for Hunter's Hill.
Make a motion to approve the Hunters Hill subdivision, conservation subdivision.
Modification.
Modification.
Thank you. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Okay, motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and second. Any further discussion, concerns, or anything before we take it to a vote?
Okay.
You guys good? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's 4 ayes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Let you know, thank you. And, you know, this has been dormant for an extremely long period of time. A lot of people that live there, 34, you know, houses now that certainly anxious to get this done. And we're equally anxious to do a great job in bringing this to fruition and to work with you and other boards in the town to make this a gem of a
Yeah,
community
I'm looking
for the
forward to it.
town.
I'm looking forward to what you guys do here, and I think it's gonna be a great addition to the town of Dayton, like you said. And, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
look
much.
forward to it. Thank you.
Good.
All right, next item on the agenda is public hearing for the zoning bylaw amendment, section 4600, ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installation. We need to make a motion to open that public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so, good evening. I think you're here specifically for the subject? All right, good, so, got it. All right, so, what we have tonight is, in one hand, we have the bylaw modification that we tried to get approved in June. That was defeated. And in the other hand, we have how we want to modify it. So, after talking to some residents, taking inputs from other members of the board, we rolled in some comments, nothing is changing from the standard operating procedure for the battery energy storage. That's all staying the same. We can review that if anybody's interested to go through that. But what I really wanted to focus on is just the red lines from June to now. And I think, do you guys have a color copy or do you have a black and white copy?
Sorry, I did a black and white, but
Okay.
it has the red marks, or the black.
Yeah, so in your document, oh, he's got the red right there. You printed your own?
Yeah.
So if you look in your document, see the bars? Those are changed, those things mean something's changed to the right. Those are change bars.
Why do I have?
Okay.
Recall seeing-
Yeah, you've got the original one. That's the original. So if you keep flipping through it, it'll be smaller text. Is it small? Yeah, it's smaller text and it's microfiche. I got a magnifying glass in my backpack if you need one. I have one. I carry it all the time. I'm telling you. When I go into the lab at work, I can't have my phone with me, so I can't take a picture of something and zoom in. So I've got to have a magnifying glass and small text. All right, so the focus of the changes really have to do with buffers, but I can go through and go through each individual change when you guys are ready. Boy, make sure Mr. Figueredo gets there. Yeah, keep going.
He's the slowpoke.
That's fine. One more. There you are, right there.
you
That's
go.
where it changes. So everywhere you see these vertical lines, those are change bars. So something's changed to the right. Okay. So if you look on page 1, the only changes I made, being type A, I went and changed ground mounted, 2 different words to ground mounted with a hyphen. It is a hyphenated word. So sorry,
No, it's
couldn't
fine.
help it. I was getting itchy reading that. No.
It's fine.
So that's your changes on page 1. The change down the bottom is just a footer changing to say that I added that division. If you go to page 2, just to be more accurate on the minimum, so on 4631, you see the minimum lot size for letter B, talking about small scale ground mounted solar. I just wanted to mark it in kilowatts, small k, big W, and just specifically mention that that's direct current. Because when you rate solar panels, when you got a 10 kW array, like I have on my roof, you rate those in direct current, not an alternating current. You generate electricity and solar panels at direct current, and you change it into AC to go in your house. So it wasn't pointed out, so I just threw that in there just for completeness. That's the only change on that page, and then there's a bunch of just more dashes in the ground mounted stuff. If you look at page 3, there's just some typographical things on top, nothing big. So no changes really on page 3 to talk about. Page 4, so on the lighting, you guys see that in 4651?
Yep.
I changed the sentence just to read, instead of saying dark sky lighting, it's lighting of large-scale ground-mounted solar electric installation, including electric storage systems, shall be dark sky compliant and consistent with local, state, and federal law. So it flows a little easier, because then below it kind of describes, it goes into the description of, everything below it is describing dark sky. Dark sky compliance is a commercially recognized term, and everything below that goes into that. Aight. That's it on page 4. Page 5, no significant changes, just the dash on ground mounted. And finally, we come to the good stuff on page 6, on 4659. So I made some big changes here for dimensional and density requirements and setbacks. So in your packet, you'll see after talking to Mr. Crisafulli, at the recommendation of Robert Woods, who couldn't be here tonight. Mr. Crisafulli was one of the gentlemen who spoke up at the annual town meeting in June, and he had concerns about setbacks and buffers and whatnot. I had a conversation with him, and he recommended we look at the town of Dartmouth and the town of Rochester, Massachusetts, to see what they had for their solar bylaws. And I'm glad he did, so thank you, Mr. Crisafulli, if you're listening to this or watch this afterwards. So we did look at that, so I pulled information from there, specifically in Dartmouth. It's really straightforward in Dartmouth if you look at it. They just talk about 75 feet all around, and then they talk about separate buffer. So what I did was, if you look at page 6, the front yard didn't change. It still says what it says there. The side yard, I beefed it up. So it now reads, side yard, so number 2 under 4659A, says that each side yard should have a depth of at least 75 feet and at least 100 feet from any dwelling on another parcel as measured from the closest point of the array or any accessory structure to the dwelling. So, Dan, you had a distinction, however, where it abuts a residential district. I thought, let's make a clean slate, make it 100 feet across the board. I don't know how you guys feel about that. So I kept the original words in there, provided, however, where there's, same thing on number 3. Number 3 is identical to number 2. It just separate paragraphs because it talks about front, side, and rear yard. So, so number 3 reads, the rear yard depth shall be at least 75 feet and at least 100 feet from any dwelling on another parcel as measured from the closest point of the array or any accessory structure to the dwelling. So again, not making a separate
Okay,
distinction.
so the property, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
the property on which this is being worked on is a 75-foot setback. Okay.
The array is here,
Yes.
and it's 75 feet to the
To the
property line.
to the property line.
Yeah.
But the other property would have to have at least 25 feet
Feet.
away from that.
From there, so
Okay.
now it's 100.
Okay.
So Robert Wood sent an email, and I don't have it, but he asked about 200 feet of buffer. I don't know how you guys feel about if 100 feet's sufficient. I feel like 100 feet's sufficient.
I do. I think 200 feet is a little bit much for anyone, because if you take a solar array that's 1,000 feet, deep or whatever, just taking numbers, and you do 200 feet off, you're looking at a lot of property, a lot of land that's not being used. And I don't think that it's fair for anybody to lose that much property on something like that.
So, the-
I'm not sure from the email, because I don't have it in front of me, that I think you're right, he was suggesting 200 feet as an absolute, like from 75 to 200.
I'm not sure.
Although I think what you just said, which is a different point, which is, it's not an absolute buffer, it's the distance from the closest point of the array to a dwelling on the next property. So, sometimes it may just be 75 feet, sometimes it may be 100 feet because of where the next residential dwelling is. So then the question is, would the board think about increasing that 100 feet to something higher, not as an absolute buffer, but as a distance from the closest point of the array to a nearby dwelling?
That's good, I understand that part, but the problem is, then if somebody has, let me see, I had a nice point to make and now I lost it.
but it's gonna be a dwelling, not a accessory building on the.
Yeah, not a garage or an outbuilding, a dwelling.
Okay.
Yeah. But you gotta also, just so you know, it says, measured from the closest point of the array or an accessory structure. So anything that goes along with that array has to be 100 feet.
100 feet,
They put like a power conditioning box.
right.
It's not, so the array's here, house is here, and you got this, this little shack over here that's a power converter. Well, you don't go to the array, you go to this thing.
Okay.
So it tacks on.
My biggest concern is to make sure that we make it so that there's no confusion on it. That's the, a lot of people can translate that different ways, and that's my biggest concern, is not to do it, make sure we explain it perfectly.
Well, if you look at B is strictly for small scale ground mounted, or I forgot a dash there, didn't I? Small scale ground mounted, that's where Dan originally got the 100 feet from. Because that was, you grabbed that and you pulled that up.
Correct.
So the 100 feet was, just like the Sunrun company that came in. One of our questions to them is, hey, that's a small scale, ground mounted. Is it at least 100 feet from the closest dwelling on the abutting property?
Correct.
And that's in the existing bylaw.
Yeah.
So that's where the 100 feet came from. So I think, just from the precedents that we have for B, I'm kind of hoping the language is clear enough where there won't be any confusion, and it definitely shouldn't be open to interpretation.
But I'm just going back to what Dan was saying on, make it 100 feet, period, and not,
No, I think that might have been the intention of the email that was circulating around, and Mr. Wood's not here, so he can't speak to it.
From Robert Woods about making it
Yeah,
200.
and that is, I think, a bit extreme, but I was just floating the idea of increasing the 100 to something higher, if measured from dwelling to
the array.
solar, to the array, closest array accessory point. Given that we had already said 100 for small, and I'm sure we said that because there was no absolute buffer for small whatsoever, so we made it that way. But now we're going from small to large. Is there a, commensurate increase in that distance because we're talking small to large?
The difference from small to large is 50 kilowatts. 50 kilowatts is the threshold for small. 250 kilowatts is the modified threshold for large. Anything larger than 250 is considered large. Originally, it's 1 megawatt.
Yeah, I meant
So-
commensurate in terms of distance, not,
That's
this
scale.
definition.
I'm just thinking,
Yeah, it's scale, okay.
give
yeah.
yourself, something in your mind. Large arrays could be on the order of 4 times larger than a I don't know that I want to make the number 400 feet.
Yeah. I was suggesting something like around 150, honestly, but
150,
as a point of measurement between the closest point of the array to the nearest dwelling. And if the dwelling's 200 feet away, then it's a moot point, or if the, you know, it doesn't change the absolute buffer. It just changes the proximity of anybody's house to the array.
Most likely, these things are not gonna be built near houses. I mean, we've got.
That's true, everything's not equal,
So, only small arrays, you know, and somebody wants to put one for their own use, that's probably.
But the conversation is really about protecting residents, so I think we have to assume that it will be in residential. That's the worst case.
Yeah,
That's the case we need to protect. And if it's not in the residential area, then they should have no issues meeting any of this really, because it won't be a
Right.
dwelling.
what about the part that's not visible from the road?
That's number 4. All right, so we can come back to the 100 feet. So, number 4, if you look at that, I completely replaced that paragraph with something a lot more detailed, which is a direct clip from Dartmouth. So we'll come back to the 100-foot discussion here. So number 4 reads, now it says buffers, a natural buffer shall be provided around the entire facility, including the large-scale ground-mounted solar electric installation and any accessory structures, for the purpose of screening from view, the same by a person standing at ground level, from adjacent streets and properties. Such buffering can be existing vegetation or landforms or new plantings. Said buffer shall be at least 30 feet deep and shall be continuous, save only where access drives must pass through the buffer. Said buffer needs to conform with the setback requirements of above. Such vegetation shall be of a type that will grow to at least 10 feet within 5 years of the completion of the construction of the large-scale ground-mounted solar electric installation. When vegetation is planted, at least 75% of such vegetation shall be evergreen species. Landscape plans showing existing and proposed vegetations shall be provided as part of the site plan with specifications as to type and size noted so that it can be clearly understood what will be planted. I think that's fantastic.
I think the 100 feet with a wall of
30 foot of vegetative
deep,
buffer.
10 feet high buffer sounds pretty reasonable to me.
I was confused about one point. It said, the buffer shall be at least 30 feet deep, and then it said, needs to conform with the setback requirements of above. So is it 30 feet deep starting at 75? Like you've got 105 feet then before they can put in an array? Or is that not what it's intended to say?
As long as it's continuous.
I know, it just says the buffer shall begin with the same setback. That part confused me a little bit.
With 100 feet setback, right, from the
Well,
road?
it just said the buffer shall conform to the same setback requirements as above, which I assume they're talking about the ones for the array itself. And I didn't know whether that was the intention. I think that's a bit extreme. I mean.
No, that's not the intention. I think
Okay,
that's
all right.
confusing.
Yeah, okay,
Should probably strike that sentence, because it's not the intention.
right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that sentence at all.
I think the setback requirement might be part of the setback in our zoning bylaws where you have the side yard setbacks. When you do, like when you put a fence up on property, that might be, instead of saying from above, because you took it from,
I took it from Dartmouth and modify it. I added the words of above.
Okay, all right.
So it should be in setback requirements as set by per zoning, zoning setback requirements?
But we have, this is okay. There is one question that comes up, like, the one that was approved on Tremont Street. The solar panels are gonna be about 10 feet off the ground. What do we do about that for visibility?
Well, this does say person standing at ground level, looking at the array. So
Correct.
they're looking up at a pretty high array. That's a lot of vegetation that would require them to put in. I mean, but that's what it says. That's what would be required. I mean,
But my problem is, we approved that, and we also included in that a 14-foot high fence. which I think is the most hideous thing to do, right? I think it's gonna look like hell.
Where's the 14-foot fence? Is that in the SOP?
No, this was all,
Along the road,
that was all before that.
that's
all
all
before that?
along the road, am I correct?
I believe so, yeah.
It's been a few years since we approved that. Now, all I can envision is telephone poles 14 foot high all along the road. What is it, a president back and in the back of that, or, you know, that's, I'm not so sure that I just can't imagine that, and I don't wanna see that.
Well, that was a unique situation, and that was what was done in that project. This is,
No, I
this is,
understand.
yeah, this is snapping a line moving forward. We're not saying we're gonna require 14-foot fences here.
No, I know we're not, I know.
So that is one specific project and one unique situation that doesn't, we wouldn't go back and ask them to put 10-foot trees in.
But in that situation, if it were to come up again, we would be requiring some pretty massive vegetation to block raised arrays from somebody standing on the street looking at them. That,
We either want people to see them or we don't.
yeah, exactly.
So
I know.
we need to,
I'm just not
Determine what
sure
needs
if
to be
it's
carried
gonna come back to, you know, why you did it on that one, why different on this one?
well, it was done in that way there because this didn't exist yet. We didn't have this language and, I mean, I'm good with saying historically, that's the decisions we made for the reasons we had at the time. But as we move forward, we're trying to define it a little better, and I think this would be a cleaner setup than a 14-foot
I
fence
agree.
all day long.
I agree.
And yeah, I mean, obviously, every situation's gonna be unique, but this is gonna catch the large percentage
I
of
agree,
what we're
yeah.
concerned about. And that's why we handle these on a case-by-case basis, so I think it's reasonable that this will catch the majority of it. But I do wanna change setback requirements of above. Instead of above, we should reference a zoning setback requirement of the town. I mean, I could just put the placeholder language in there for now.
That'll be, yeah, I'm looking for,
Okay. All right, so, circling back to the items above about the 100 feet, there was an opinion that wanted to bump it up to 150.
That was a suggestion, yeah, that is
Right.
my suggestion.
Yep.
150 from any dwelling. is
From any
that-
dwelling
Dwelling.
to to the array or any accessory building.
Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're increasing it by 25 feet in a sense. No,
50 feet.
50 feet.
50 feet. Assuming there is an adjacent dwelling nearby. If there's none, then it's a moot point, but
I think that's a bit,
It's a lot, isn't it?
yeah.
That's a lot.
um,
Let's think on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's think about that. All right, so let me just skip to the rest of the changes in the document, and then we'll circle back. So page 7, really just typographical things. Page 9 is the absolute last page. And the changes I made there, I kind of already talked about. I changed the large-scale ground-mounted solar electric installation definition threshold. This is actually lifted right from the Dartmouth document. It went from 1 megawatt DC to 250 kilowatts DC. Nothing else on page 9 has changed, so we're kind of at the end of the changes that I'm proposing. So,
And that's the last one?
yeah, that's page 9, that's the last page, and that's the last change on that document.
I guess my question is how's Chris feel?
What's your opinion,
Sure.
Mr. Cunha?
Opinion?
I think the 100 with the vegetation buffer's fine. I think the Tremont Street location, if something comes up like that again, that's entirely unique. I mean, then you have to look at, I wasn't on the board when that was voted on, so what's the pitch on those? Is it like we have at the school, just a smaller scale?
it's pretty big.
What do you mean?
I don't know
at
what the
school?
pitch is.
What's
You
I'm
it?
not saying, yeah, I mean, if the panel's like this, then obviously.
Well,
It's a different, you know, it's a different, you would shelter it differently than if it's like this. And then if it's at more of an angle and you demand all this vegetation around it, then you're blocking sunlight from the system, so there's
from what I
a
understood,
bit involved in
the one on Tremont Street is gonna be 10 feet from the ground to the bottom of the lowest part of the panel. So if there is an angle, which there will be, the other side could be, I don't know, 12 feet, you know? So then it's gonna be visible.
Sure.
But if a person is standing on the ground and there is 6 feet at 100 feet away, or 30 feet away, or 50 feet away, that person, you know, will never see that, even at that height.
No, they won't,
Right.
unless you happen to be 14 feet tall.
Well,
Well, I mean, that's it, but the average person, you know, 5'9", 5'10",
yeah,
not the average Portuguese person, you know what I mean?
Well,
The average person,
whatever.
average is different people, but, the average person, I think that'd be sufficient, even there.
Well, I think do we wanna vote on this, or
Well, this is
a discussion?
it's a discussion, public hearing, eventually we wanna vote on this, and, kinda want input from the public once we get done talking.
Okay.
All
go
right,
for it.
so, at this point, I know there, folks are here, probably have some opinion on what you heard there this evening, so if you could please step up and introduce yourself, and
Lauren Beausoleil, 1680 Pine Street.
Alan Beausoleil, 1680 Pine Street.
thank you.
We were reading some of the bylaws, and we noticed some things there that not, that weren't in them before, such as a sign placed at the solar field site.
A what?
Signage requirements?
A sign. Not an advertising signs, something like I would think would be, what a project. We got new solar.
It's not meant to be advertising, it's meant to just identify with a point of contact.
It's on the identification sign.
Let me find it for you, 'cause I did read this. Read, that particular portion of it, I just gotta find where that is. One second, lighting signage, signs on such installations, shall comply with the town's sign bylaw. The following signs shall be required. Those that necessary to identify the owner, provide a 24-hour emergency contact phone number and warn of any danger. Educational signs providing information about the facility and the benefits of renewable energy. Installations shall not be used for displaying any advertising except for reasonable identification of the manufacturer or operator of the facility.
What would that part be about the educational sign? I'm looking at probably something 4x8 sheet of plywood that's all done up with the solar project.
I don't have a copy of the town's sign bylaw. Is anybody familiar with what that is?
I think the town has a maximum size of a 2x2, if I remember correctly.
So what we're concerned about is that it's bad enough what we have to look at,
Okay,
but, you know, you got road signs, you got other signs. I mean, it's absolutely eye litter, and it's disturbing.
I mean, when you look at the size of the culvert that's there, right? All the arrows now that are there, looks like I-95. We can see all the solar panels. We can see the lithium storage containers, which were supposed to be camouflaged. The
Which
vegetation-
that's still on the thing, if I'm correct,
Right,
right?
that's
That's
still
still
on the
in the,
thing, right?
the laws there, that they're gonna be
Well, it's not approved yet,
correct.
Right,
But
it's not-
it's what's being proposed.
correct? And
And what we noticed, there's no height requirement in the bylaws, right, for these storage containers for lithium-ion batteries?
Where we did, it used to be in there for 10 feet, and now that was taken away.
What was 10 feet?
The height of the
container.
storage containers for the
lithium
batteries.
I don't think they're going to 10 feet.
They're 10 feet, that's,
And the standard operating.
That's in the SOP, right?
That wouldn't be in our,
I'm sorry?
that wouldn't be in our bylaw, that would be in the standard operating procedure.
Yeah, so that's in the standard operating procedure, and the number was, 10 feet was the maximum height.
but didn't you say, once the bylaws are in effect, that the standard operating procedures?
No, the bylaws, I misspoke. The bylaws set the standard, and then the SOP, what does the SOP turn into eventually?
We're gonna do a regulation.
Yeah, it becomes a regulation, which gives the details, like the dimensional details on the individual units.
So that would be in there, that
It'll
10-foot?
be in the regulation.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Once
I
that
missed,
goes into
that was my mistake for saying that. My interpretation, because we worked on the SOP for quite a while, and I was thinking eventually this thing would just turn into this, but it's actually gets separated with a nitty-gritty of what you're talking about, was in the regulations document.
Okay. You were talking about the distance from the abutters.
Yes, ma'am.
Our recommendation is not from the dwelling, but from the property line.
There is a number, 75 feet to the property line, and then on top of that, once you get to the property line, the array or any accessory building, there would be an additional, I guess you can call it an additional 25 feet. So it'd be 100 feet total.
Yeah, in our opinion, living through it, that's not enough.
I mean, we see the entire project, you can see it from the street. There's no blockage.
It affects your
It's not
property.
camouflaged in any way. Like I said, we have everything we're looking at all day long, plus their porta john that's been there for like 2 years.
Okay.
It's plainly visible, all the rules that were supposed to be followed for underplanting and trees, I mean, they're dying, some of them are dying, and you know that they weren't planted the proper distance, so
Yep, no,
how many years do I have to live before I don't see that solar field?
Okay, that's what we're trying to protect with the buffer paragraph, and we're hoping that's beefed up enough where we can prevent that from happening.
you do realize that there are big issues with that solar array. We are having
Yes,
Oh, we know.
yes, she has
So
done this to me,
this is,
ever.
it's like anything else in this world. I was a contractor for about 40 years, so I ran into a lot of different people that did work for me, and I worked for a lot of other people, and if you don't do your job the right way, as a subcontractor or a contractor, everything is gonna go to hell, because you just don't know which way to turn, you know what I'm saying? And that's exactly what's happening here. They came in with plans that specified certain things, they turned around and did other things. All we can do is stop them, okay?
Well, I think more oversight should have been taken care of by the town, instead of her being the watchdog.
Yeah, but
You know, anything that they do that's not in the plans, we're on the phone. We're the only ones that have been fighting this. So,
The
you
issue
understand
is,
that.
how far can we go as a town? Do we have to be there to babysit? We shouldn't have to.
Then maybe you should have made them hire someone on your behalf to check them and make them pay
And now-
for all what they've done and how they,
You overheard today on the stormwater.
I did.
I actually said, now we shouldn't take
You did
any-
say that, and I thank you.
We shouldn't take anything for granted. Everybody that works in there has to be watched.
that's right.
And that's it. I mean, there's no, whether it comes out of them or whoever, I don't know who's gonna pay for it, but they have to be watched, because everything that they did in there,
And-
from the basins to everything else, was not to the code.
Well, I know
What they
he
proposed.
said, I mean, I was at the same meeting you were, and he said that they were gonna watch it. Well, we've seen what happened when they
But
watch it.
see, this is the problem. There are people that say and do exactly as they say, and there are those that say and don't do anything to the way it's supposed to be. And that's why the ones that really mean to do things the right way get punished when they come before boards. You know, how many times I attended many meetings, and because of what others did, they are not taking any chances. They just stay on us, and
We realize some of these proposals and things you're talking about cannot affect us because of what's already in place.
Correct.
But we've been fighting not for us anymore. We're fighting to make sure that other residents coming into town don't have to go through what we've been through. That's
I
what-
don't ever wanna see another resident have to go through what we've been through.
And
It's
that-
not fair. It's not fair.
So it's basically just a do the right thing.
Could I ask you, though, on the array, when you talk about front yard, backyard?
Yeah.
What's considered the front yard or the backyard?
The front yard is the side of the property that faces the road. So it's measured from the roadway right away to the center line.
Okay, so it's got nothing to do with the back panel, front panels, it's,
No, here's,
the front yard is the roadway.
here's the array.
Yep.
Here's like a little shed that goes along with the array. You start the number right here. And go, so it's all the accessory buildings, everything that goes along with it. It's here to the street.
Which would normally
It's
be where the
here
entrance
to the
is,
side, the internet.
well,
Well,
normally.
mostly,
maybe, yeah,
most likely. Because they gotta get access from the main road.
Right.
yeah.
So, all right, so you know the Brook Street, so it's considered where it comes in? That's the front? That's considered the front?
Yes.
Okay. And one other suggestion that I've never seen put in. Why are you allowing them to cut down forests to put in solar panels? It's counteracting everything you're saying you're doing. There should not be any deforestation for solar panels.
I'm sure you can find a town that has that in the bylaw.
There
where,
was I
you
remember
have to
mentioning it to you,
clear-cut,
Freetown or,
Wooded areas.
I
that
think
you
it
can't
was
put a solar
Freetown.
Because it,
Well, I think if we say no, I believe the state is gonna end up permitting that.
I think your bylaws supersede the state.
No.
What we read,
No, they don't.
they don't?
They do not.
Not at all.
Nope.
no.
No? Oh,
No, we don't,
Same thing
unfortunately.
as 40Bs. People say, oh, no, you shouldn't never let that go through. Well, if we don't, then the state comes in and they're the ones that rule everything.
Yeah,
The
the way-
town will be completely out of it.
The way 40Bs work, and there's a parallel to this. The way 40Bs work is you either get the rules the way you want them and make proper preparations, or it'll be done on your behalf.
Right.
And you don't want it done on your behalf ever.
and I know I had asked Stormwater this, but just to check with you. So, you know how they had to have an escrow to take it apart if they run away? Has more money been increased because they want batteries? That's, I mean, that's the most hazardous waste thing you could imagine. I can't imagine a town being able to afford
I know they-
removal of batteries.
Once they put them containers in there without permission, now you had to increase what they needed to fund for disabling it. when
For
it's-
the decommissioning.
Decommissioning, yes,
Decommission it.
yes.
So,
So, Yeah.
have you allowed that? I mean, have you put that into your,
Not been approved.
it's not been approved.
right, but I mean, is it proposed?
Well, they try to put them in without even asking.
Oh,
So-
I know.
So that's
Oh,
why
I
we.
know. But, I mean, that should be, I think, a big part, that they should have to add more money to escrow if they run away.
Oh, it's a bond that is, they have to submit to us. Am I correct,
The
Carrie?
same bond for removing of the arrays is very different than moving battery storage.
Yeah, there are abandonment and decommissioning provisions in the bylaw
For the battery storage,
I had
for
read that.
the array.
In charge of the whole pilot agreement.
That is
I know the
bylaw.
array, but I'm,
I think if they abandon it, doesn't it fall back on the property owner?
The pilot agreement?
Absent notice of a proposed date of decommissioning or written notice of extenuating services, a solar electric installation shall be considered abandoned when it fails to operate for more than 1 year without written consent of the planning board. If the owner or operator of the large-scale ground-mounted solar electric installation fails to remove installation, and batteries are part of this. This is not just, the installation, batteries become part of the installation. So even though it doesn't specifically say batteries, that's part of that. If the owner or operator of the large-scale ground-mounted solar electric installation fails to remove within the requirements of this section within 150 days, the abandonment of the proposed date of decommissioning, town shall enter the property and physically remove the installation. I don't know who, according to that, who is liable.
Was 4680, your language in there, is that reference
Let's
that?
see.
It just says it'll be charged back to the
As determined by the applicant and the town. So, such surety will not be required from state-owned buildings, applicant shall submit. So really, it's the applicant.
The applicant, what?
The permitted applicant, so I mean, that's ultimately who's responsible, if I'm
Correct,
reading
but
this.
if that applicant disappears, I think is what their question is.
Right, but then there's supposed to be, installation, it says that the, trying to find the beginning of the sentence here. So if it does get abandoned, then there's financial surety in 4683. Applicant for large scale shall provide a form of surety, either through escrow account, bond, or other form of surety approved by the planning board to cover the cost and removal of in the event the town must remove the installation and remediate the landscape in an amount and form determined to be reasonable by the planning board, but no event to exceed more than 125% of the cost of removal in compliance with the additional requirements set forth herein as determined by the applicant and the town. So if they add things like batteries, if they add things like whatever, page 9,
Okay.
that's all inclusive. It's not exclusive. So
they have to
the-
add on to that.
The,
They have to
the, yeah,
add
the
on.
concern about, hey, if they add batteries, you gotta add more, well, yes, it's going to cost more, so therefore, the surety value goes up accordingly.
Right,
So it's included
okay,
in these words.
okay.
Do you guys agree?
I agree
Yeah.
that it should be that way.
And I think the point is too, if the applicant disappears, that in 4680, it says the cost of
Right.
removal will be charged to the property owner.
Oh,
That's
Yeah.
what I thought I read today. The property owner, which means you're gonna have one property for the solar field on Brook Street is leased. The next property is gonna be owned, so.
but the amount's in
They're not-
escrow, so
they're-
it isn't like somebody's gonna get a bill.
They're not really gonna be putting any arrays on that property
No.
that they're
No.
buying.
No,
So all that's there for is to meet
For the
the buffers. Yes, that's what that's for.
All set?
okay,
Thank you so much for your time.
Well,
And patience.
thank you very much, I appreciate it, thank you for coming out tonight.
Anytime.
See
Any,
you next month.
of course. Gentlemen? Please introduce yourself. You got a motion somewhere.
Hi, everyone. Eric Weinstein at New Leaf Energy. I know I spoke with a few of you a few months back, see a couple new faces as well.
Right.
If it's appropriate to talk about energy storage as well underneath this bylaw that I know has been directed mostly at solar.
Okay.
Just kind of one question on that. So full appreciation for the amount of work that's already gone into the bylaw amendments here that you've been discussing. Setbacks for energy storage specifically, it's at 200 feet with a 100-foot vegetative buffer.
Yep, that's on
No.
page 7.
I know when I had commented on this a couple months ago, one of my comments was regarding a consultation with the fire chief on that. I just heard some comments on visual impacts. That makes sense, but more curious about the alignment of that setback with the setback for solar as well, considering that, you know, height requirements are probably the same, visual impacts the same. It seems like that comes back to public safety and fire hazard. So
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, you gotta speak up if I'm speaking out of turn, but, we're specifically concerned about safety concerns with the, energy storage, system, and these were unique to that detail.
sure.
So that's why those look a little different specifically because of that concern.
I know the NFPA had the National Fire Code essentially has specified more towards a 100-foot range, which would align with the solar setback that you'd had. Has there been any consideration for aligning that? It looks like it's just a doubling of that width, and the reason I mention that is, you know, when you're looking at a 17, 18 acre parcel with a 200-foot setback, you're really reduced down to about 3.5 acres or so, which, you know, that may work for certain configurations of solar sites with a singular battery energy storage unit, but you know, considering the amount of renewable energy that, you know, state policy and federal policy is promoting, and the way that batteries are going to be needed more to accommodate that energy, that's a really large parcel for one singular energy storage unit. So for any standalone battery energy storage projects, you're looking at, you know, one unit or however many there are in a big field. Whereas, you know, the similar types of projects are permitted in New York City, where you're adjacent to buildings and property lines. So, you know, my comment would be really just to for consideration on that setback to align more with the 100-foot setback associated with the solar arrays as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything further? Sure.
Dean Smith from New Leaf Energy. It's again about the setbacks, but the requirement to clear 100 feet swath around the perimeter of the fence of those standalone systems. There's wording in your bylaw about wanting to minimize the amount of clearing that's required for these projects, and 100-foot wide cleared swath around the perimeter of these projects is adding a lot of clearing to those. So it seems a little bit contradictory to require that much clear space out of there.
Right.
As Eric mentions, in the NFPA guidelines, they're much more reduced than that.
What is it?
It's 100.
It's 100 foot completely, but under that, if you have the appropriate fire protection measures, you can have battery storage units that are within 10 feet of another structure. So there's not a big, wide area around a project that's required.
The only concern that I would have is if there is a fire and there is trees within 10, 20 feet of that, and there's an explosion, now what happens?
Well, the units that we specify have fire suppression systems built into them. So there's temperature monitoring continuously, so they're monitoring the operation of those battery systems. If the temperatures begin to rise, it automatically shuts down the system. There's also an inert gas system that's automatically discharged if there were to be a rise in temperature as well. So there are ways to protect so that it's not.
These things have a malfunction.
Of course, anything can, yes. But, you know, we're gonna be required to bring in fire protection measures to extend water lines and provide fire protection systems at the site. So it just seems like a very aggressive amount of clearing.
I mean,
around
to that statement about other sections of the bylaw, specifically right below there on the same page, on land clearing, minimizing clearing, there's a balance between what the town was comfortable with for safety and realizing that it flies in the face of not clearing trees, but there's still the concern about flammable things being really close to things that potentially could malfunction. No matter how small those odds, we don't want to see catastrophic fire as a result of this, because we wanted to bump that down, and, you know, but no, I do appreciate that those seem contradictory. And that was just a balancing between what we felt was appropriate for the safety of these units going into the town at night.
Sure, understood.
But thank you.
One final question, what's the process from here? If you vote to approve
Yeah, we're actually,
your
we're gonna
modified
vote,
bylaw?
we're accepting, we're not approving. Or we're approving from our board.
Well, what you're gonna do is if you're gonna make the changes, accept the changes, you're gonna
Yep.
make a motion to accept the changes.
Right,
And then you're gonna make a motion to submit to the selectmen for the warrant for special town meeting. And then it goes to special town meeting for November 1st for a town vote.
Okay.
And
Is there
then-
any public meeting before the town board, before it
Yes.
gets there?
That's what this is.
Right here.
Okay, so this is that part. Okay,
Yes.
This is
so,
a public hearing.
This is the
so
public hearing
what
for
gets
this.
recommended then goes to the
Gets
town meeting?
recommended and gets submitted to the Board of Selectmen. And then on November 1st, it goes to town meeting for a town vote.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it gets approved, then it goes to the Attorney General for the Attorney General's approval. And
Sure,
Yeah, so tonight is
Got it.
just what we're submitting, and the town takes it from there.
okay, so this is the last step prior to the town meeting,
Correct.
basically.
That doesn't
Right.
mean that someone on the floor at town meeting may stand up and say something, which has happened at the last meeting,
That's what
which is
happened, that's
why
why
we're
we're
here
here,
now.
yep.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, yes.
Thank you.
Quick question, what's the average height of one of these storage units?
Well, there are different varieties, but the cube style of units that we specify are about 10 feet high at the highest. So that's with, you know, at the end unit. The other ones are more like 8.5 feet tall.
And those usually sit on a concrete pad?
They would be on a concrete pad, yes.
So you're talking from the concrete pad to the highest point,
Right.
10 feet.
Yeah, and the older style containers, which are probably what's adjacent to this property, are more like a storage container.
Like a Connex box?
Yeah, it's like a standard shipping container size, basically.
Okay, those are about what, 8 feet?
8.5, 9 feet.
About 8 feet, yeah, they average that. 3, 8'6".
Okay.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, that's everybody in the public. Members of the board, I know we went back and forth here, and I know we had one tweak on page 6 for 4659A4. Do we have a zoning setback requirement reference, or should I just,
So I found so where is the, so for the, needs to conform, you can put, as set forth in the table of dimensional regulations, which is our appendix, as set forth in the appendix B, table of dimensional regulations, and that gives you all the setback requirements.
oh, that's in the back there, as all building setback on the top there, 4658. All building setbacks shall be in conformance with appendix B.
Right,
So I can probably just say,
same
sentence
thing.
should say, said buffer needs to conform with the setbacks, or it shall conform with appendix B.
Yes. Shall conform.
Hang on, said buffer, okay, said buffer shall conform with setback requirements listed in appendix B. Does that sound okay?
Shall conform with setback requirements.
It's in Appendix B.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the only modification to the modification. Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions or comments or concerns on what you have before you here tonight?
So would the addressing, or I guess would now be a time if we're ever gonna address, like I brought up the height requirement of those storage containers.
it's in the
That's
SOP.
in the SOP,
That's in the SOP.
so not pertaining to this, okay.
And I want to say it out loud, because we don't have it here, that the bylaw is only applicable to the finished product. It does not apply to construction phase concerns. And I know that's a lot of what people are being affected with in the town of Dayton, and we completely understand and are sensitive to that. But just so everybody's aware, that the bylaw is really regulating and setting forth the requirements for what the installation is going to look like when it's completed. Any issues or concerns during the construction phase are under the purview of the building commissioner's office. So just want to say that out loud, because I know there's a lot of confusion, and folks that we've talked to, where there's definitely concerns about air quality during construction, like you're well aware of the dust and everything that you've had to deal with, and you know, sound, all those things that happen during the construction phase needs to be under the purview of the building commissioner's office. So we confirmed it with them, so we're not speaking on his behalf. So we did confirm it with their office, and they said absolutely. So just so we know, so we're all on the same page there. That's why you don't see anything in there about air quality or anything, construction phase, places where porta-johns go, that kind of thing. That's building commissioner. Sound all right? All right. So gentlemen, if there's nothing further, I want to first entertain a motion to vote to approve the modifications to the 4600, I'll read the actual words here, zoning bylaw amendment, section 4600, ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations.
So moved.
Okay, motion made, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion made and second, any further discussion before we take it to a vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the changes have been approved, and now we have a vote to approve as changed, to not approve.
Motion to submit to the select.
Submit to the Board of Selectmen, thank you, I should have wrote that down. Entertain a motion to submit the zoning bylaw amendment, section 4600, ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installation to the Board of Selectmen for review.
So moved.
Motion made, and second, motion made and seconded. Any discussion before we take it to a vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 ayes. That baby passes, thank you. All right, so next agenda item is agenda item 4B4, which is Forest Hills Special Permit Conservation Subdivision. And we received an email from the developer. Thank you very much. Says from Joshua Glass, received on September 12th, 2022, 10:49 a.m. Carry, the additional request test pits have been completed, but Outback Engineering is still working through the peer review comments, requests, and tasks, and corresponding revisions to project documents. Unfortunately, I think it is unlikely that we will have the revised materials complete in time for a meaningful review prior to the Planning Board's 9/21 meeting. Given that, applicant respectfully requests a continuance to the Planning Board's October 19th meeting. If the Planning Board would like, I'm happy to attend next week and provide a project update. Thank you, best, Josh. So we did respond and let him know that he didn't have to be present for that. So at this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept or to continue the Forest Hills public hearing
I'll make that motion.
until October 19th. All right. Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion before we take it to a vote? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Aye, motion carries, all right, great. Next item on the agenda is agenda item number 5, approval of meeting minutes for August 17th, 2022. Can somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 17, 2022.
Okay, motion made, is there a second? Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, 4 ayes. Mrs. Easterday, any correspondence?
Thank you. Sorry. Yes, there is.
There is correspondence. Dun, 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 fresh from the front line. What do we got, Carrie?
It's lengthy. So, yeah. So we have a notification from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Energy Facilities Siting Board, Department of Public Utilities. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to Mass General Law 164, Section 69J 72, and General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 3, Mayflower Wind Energy, located at 101 Federal Street, Boston, Massachusetts, has filed 3 related petitions with Energy Facilities Siting Board and the Department of Public Utilities. Mayflower Wind filed these petitions for approval to construct approximately 2.7 miles of high voltage direct current export cables at approximately 300 kilovolts offshore Massachusetts state waters, making landfall at Brayton Point and continuing onshore at Brayton Point in the town of Somerset, along with a new HVDC converter substation and approximately 0.2 miles of high voltage alternating current underground transmission lines at approximately 345 kV onshore in the town of Somerset, Massachusetts. The purpose of the project is to connect Mayflower Wind's proposed offshore wind energy generation resource located in federal waters to the regional transmission system in New England. The siting board will conduct a remote public comment hearing regarding the project using Zoom video conferencing at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. Attendees can join by clicking or entering the following link. I will post this on my website. Thank you. From a computer, smartphone, or tablet. No prior software download is required for audio-only participation. Attendees can dial in at 646-558-8656, not toll-free, and then enter the webinar ID 8840-845-5934. The siting board has created a special information webpage for this proceeding and will update it during its course of proceeding at mass.gov info details / Mayflower Wind South Coast. So if anyone is looking for additional information or would like a copy of this, feel free to give me a call. I'll be happy to provide it.
Are you gonna post it to, you said it'll be on the planning board
I can throw it
website?
on my website
Okay,
and, they can get it that way
they
as
can
well.
download it from there as well if they need.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Anything else?
That's it.
That's it, all right,
That's it.
excellent. Okay, thank you. Any further public input from the audience? Did you want to talk about your outreach thing at all? Or is it too soon for that?
Can, but I just spoke to Carrie the other day. I think I'll probably come back in front of you guys and
Okay, all right,
give a full spiel as opposed to just yelling at you.
okay, all right, I appreciate it. We'll save that yelling at you some other day. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming tonight. Okay, so no additional public input. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Aye.
Aye. Good night, Cable. YouTube.